Welcome to IAF's webinar on the Enhanced Replant Program for Streams 3 and 4. My name is Derek and I'm a project coordinator with IAF. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to acknowledge that IAF's office is in Victoria, the traditional territory of the Lekwungen First Nations, represented today by the Esquimalt and Songhees Nations, and that IAF operates across the traditional and unceded Indigenous territories throughout British Columbia. ERP is funded by the Government of British Columbia through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food and is delivered by IAF. I'm joined today by Angela Boss and Carolyn Teasdale, representing the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and they will be assisting me during the Q&A period of the webinar today. Angela, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself and say a couple words about the program?
Sure. Thank you very much, Derek. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Berry Replant and Berry Removal Renewal stream webinar. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself. Angela Boss. I'm the Director of Agriculture Development for the south of the province with the Extension and Support Services branch within the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. And just want to say a thanks to the various industry associations and councils that helped us put together this program so that it addresses the needs of producers as best we can. So just want to thank the associations for their assistance in really driving the policies that this program is drafted on. And if you do have questions about how the program was designed and drafted, I'd really encourage you to connect with your industry association as well as with IAF. So thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you. And Carolyn, I'm not going to put you on the spot while you're in the room with everyone there, so you can get off the hook this time. And here we go with the agenda. So we will cover an overview of the program as a whole, so ERP generally, and then we'll go through a more detailed overview of Stream 3 and 4. And then finally, we'll go through how to apply for the funding streams. And again, the presentation will be followed by that Q&A. So the Enhanced Replant Program will provide support to help wine grape, berry, and tree fruit producers replace their existing acreage with climate-resilient varieties that produce in-demand premium fruit. The program objective is to increase the competitiveness and resiliency of the BC agri-food economy in domestic and global markets by providing direct funding support to producers looking to replace damaged, diseased, and low-producing vines, plants and trees with climate-resilient varieties that produce, again, the in-demand and premium fruit. Funding for ERP is available through 4 streams. Today's webinar is going to focus on Stream 3, the berry replant, and Stream 4, berry removal and renewal. For further information about the other funding streams, you can visit IAF's website. We have done webinars on the previous 2 streams, so you are able to go and look at those in the coming days if they haven't been posted already. So we'll get into the details of Stream 3 and 4. We'll start with Stream 3 and then move on to Stream 4. And as we go through, I will let you know what is for everybody and what is specifically for Stream 3 and Stream 4. Stream 3 is open to existing raspberry and blueberry growers that are replanting their fields. Stream 4 is open to existing blueberry growers removing and not replanting their fields, as well as existing cranberry growers renewing their fields. It's important to note that the replant or removal activities cannot start until after a producer has received funding approval. So what this means is that if you're applying for Stream 3, you cannot start the replanting activities until after approval. And for Stream 4, you cannot start the removal activities until after approval. With the funding limits, each farm operation for Stream 3 can apply for, actually this should be for both, but each farm operation can apply for a minimum of 1 continuous acre to a maximum of 20 acres or 15% of your total existing perennial crop acreage, perennial food crop acreage whichever is greater. The total funding available for each farm operation over the duration of the program is capped at $500,000. For the cost shared ratio, this depends on whether the applicant has been paid a production insurance plant loss claim or has a plant loss claim in progress for each of the fields being replanted. All applicants are required to indicate if they have been paid a plant loss claim from January 1st, 2023 and onward, or have a pending claim for the field or block being replanted. Cost share ratios for applicants will be adjusted based on business risk management program claims at each planting location. And so we can take a look at what this means in the next two slides. For stream 3, if you are applying and you do not have an active production insurance plant loss claim or haven't been paid a claim, applicants will receive a 50% cost share for nursery plants and one-time royalty or licensing fees. This means that the program will reimburse 50% of the plant costs and one-time royalty or licensing fees at the completion of the project, and the applicant will cover the remaining 50%. If you're applying to stream 3 and you have been paid a plant loss claim from January 1st, 2023 and onwards, or you have a plant loss claim under consideration, the cost share ratio will be 25% for plants and one-time royalty or licensing fees. Now, with stream 4, slightly different. Blueberry producers who are removing their blueberry crop will receive a flat rate of $2,500 per acre upon the completion of the project. Cranberry producers will receive a flat rate of $5,000 per acre of renewal upon project completion. Producers in this case with an active plant loss claims are not eligible for funding under the removal or renewal. The total funding available for each farm operation over the duration of the program is still capped at $500,000. So for this program, all applicants must meet the program-wide eligibility criteria and stream-specific eligibility criteria. Again, I will separate the differences here of what applies to everyone regardless of stream and what applies only to stream 3 or only to stream 4. Please note that after the section, stream 3 will be split further into commodity considerations, meaning that blueberry and raspberry requirements will be separated, and we'll go through that together as well. Stream 4 will be split into blueberry and cranberries. If you have questions about the varieties, please wait a little bit longer, as these will be found in these sections that are a little bit more focused, and we may answer your question then. So we can start by taking a look at the program-wide eligibility criteria. To be considered eligible for this program, you must be the owner or leasee of the land, indicate if you have been paid a production insurance plant loss claim or a plant loss claim is in progress, same as before, demonstrate financial viability to complete and maintain a project, be in good standing with the councils identified by the corresponding industry association, and maintain the property as a commercial operation for at least 4 years following the replanting. Ineligible applicants for the Enhanced Replant Program will include annual crop producers, forage producers, non-commercial producers, and farmland that is located outside of BC. Sectors that do not have an opportunity assessment completed and pre-approved by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. Producers that do not meet the minimum or meet the funding stream specific criteria, which is what we will go over next. Applicants with an active Perennial Crop Renewal Program project. So if you have a project under the Perennial Crop Renewal Program that has not been completed, you are not eligible. However, once the project is fully complete, you will be eligible to apply for ERP, assuming you're not applying for funding for the same project. So what activities are eligible under ERP then? The first one is replanting and the cost plants. This is eligible provided the planting takes place after the application is approved and plants have not been funded through other programs. Another eligible activity is planting multiple varieties of the same commodity on one continuous acre. Now, this does exclude interplanting, which is the planting of young plants between existing plants. The project requirements for Stream 3 again. The replant site must be in British Columbia. Each field being replanted must cover a minimum of one continuous acre. The field must be a single, uninterrupted block. Based on current projections, the replant site is commercially viable, so it will create a positive return at full production, and IAF will provide a form within the application called a contribution margin template, and this is where you will be able to show that viability. For each replanted site, applicants must be a licensed water user, be within an irrigation district, or have submitted a water use license application prior to applying. Irrigation systems must be installed at planting. This wine grape growers on Vancouver Island is not applicable here. The applicant must have a third-party food certificate within the past 2 years prior to applying. Now for Stream 4, eligible activities will include the removal costs for blueberry producers and renewal costs for eligible cranberry producers. Again, these are a flat rate, and other costs such as machinery or labor are not included. You will be given a flat rate based on a per acre allotment. And the removal or renewal costs are only eligible provided they take place after the application is approved and funding has not been received through a different program. So the project requirements for this one, the replant site again, or the removal site must be in British Columbia. Each field being renewed or removed must cover a minimum again of one continuous acre, being an uninterrupted block. Ineligible activities under ERP generally will include multiple planted areas that collectively equal 1 acre, new plantings, including farm expansions and the establishment of crops on bare land or land previously utilized for non-perennial food crops. The goods and services tax, so GST, is not eligible. In-kind expenses are also not eligible. Taxes and duty or shipping costs. Other planting or removal costs included but not limited to the rental of equipment, purchase of posts, wire, labor, etc. Interplanting in existing fields, so planting those young plants between existing plants in the row. Ongoing annual royalty payments, such as a per foot, per linear foot, or per fruit sold. And ineligible commodity-specific criteria as outlined in the sector-specific planting or removal guidelines. And we will go through this coming up here. And so as a reminder, as we get into the stream-specific eligibility criteria, you can submit your questions into the Q&A box, and we will answer as many as we can at the end. And so if you have a few specific eligibility questions, you might want to hold off just a little bit so that we can go through this section, because you may have an answer coming up. So for the raspberry replant under Stream 3, the crop type planted in the field prior to replanting must either be raspberries or blueberries. Applicants replacing blueberries with raspberries must be an existing raspberry producer in BC. The applicant must have a valid third-party food safety certificate within the past 2 years prior to applying. The applicant must be in good standing with the BC Raspberry Industry Development Council, with all levies paid on fresh and processed raspberry production from the previous year. The applicant must have a soil test from the field site within the last 12 months and provide a soil pH from the test report. And you will have to confirm if the soil needs to be amended to adjust the pH before planting if it's needed. So if you don't need to adjust the pH, this requirement doesn't necessarily apply to you, because no changes needed to be made based on that soil test. So for variety eligibility, planting of varieties Meeker and Cascade Bounty are ineligible for cost sharing. Planting of Wake Haven or Wakefield is not widely recommended, and this will require justification found in the marketing and sales section of your business plan before being approved for replant funding. If your application includes these two varieties that are not recommended, the Wake Haven or Wakefield, we may need additional time for adjudication, and this risks not being funded due to other varieties being prioritized. For the planting density under raspberries in stream 3, standard planting density of 1,800 to 2,200 plants per acre. High density plantings, if the planting exceeds this range, we will use verification from an accredited professional to determine that the planting density and horticultural practices are best for those that are proposed by the producer. For blueberry under stream 3 still, so the replanting of blueberries, the applicant must be an existing blueberry grower in BC. The crop type planted in the field prior to replanting also must be blueberries. And the applicant must be in good standing with the BC Blueberry Council, with all levies paid on fresh and processed blueberry production from the previous year. The applicant must have a valid third-party audited food safety certificate within the last 2 years as well. And the applicant must plan to implement best management practices to protect the new planting from the blueberry scorch fires. The applicant must have a soil test from the field site within the last 12 months and provide the soil pH from the test report. If the pH needs to be amended, we will ask for your plan to do so. For the variety eligibility, planting of the Elliott cultivar is not eligible for cost sharing. Planting of the Duke is not widely recommended and will require justification in the marketing and sales section of your business plan before approval. This is the same as those previous varieties in raspberry. It may require additional time for adjudication. Standard planting density is considered to be 1,400 to 2,000 plants per acre. High density planting again will require an accredited professional review, and this could also extend the process of approval. Now we can look at the eligibility criteria for stream 4. So this is the removal and renewal projects. Eligible applicants here for the blueberry removal are those that are exiting the industry or reducing their blueberry acreage. The applicant must be in good standing with the BC Blueberry Council, with all levies paid on fresh and processed production from the previous year again. For the cranberry renewal, eligibility criteria will include that the applicant is an existing cranberry grower in BC, of course. The applicant must be removing cranberries and planning to replant with a high-yielding variety of cranberries. The applicant must have a license to grow cranberries from the BC Cranberry Marketing Commission. So while that ties up most of the eligibility criteria for the various streams, we can start looking at what your process is going to be like for applying to ERP. If you have applied to a program run by IAF, you'll be relatively familiar with this process. So once you have registered your account, or if you already have one and you log in, you will be able to find your Funding Opportunities tab highlighted here in yellow, and you can scroll down on this page to the Enhanced Replant Program for Stream 3 or 4. Once you have drafted and saved an application, once you have drafted and saved an application, you will see it here in the blue box. This way you don't have to keep starting a new application, which will become very annoying for yourself having to consistently re-enter information. Applications for Stream 3 and 4 are currently open for drafting. Applicants have the chance to draft their application prior to submissions opening. Make sure you save your application when working on it in the IAF client portal, as I mentioned, so you can submit as soon as the application or submission period opens. The application submissions will open on Thursday, December 5th at 9 a.m. They will close on Thursday, December 12th at 4 p.m. Projects will commence upon approval following a signed contribution agreement. And so we'll talk about this agreement in a couple slides. And the replant projects must be completed within 24 months upon approval, whereas the removal or renewal projects must be completed within 12 months upon approval. The applications here will be scored using the following criteria: the enrollment in production insurance, the enrollment in Agristability or vertical integration that makes them ineligible for Agristability, a current environmental farm plan, or if you are in the process of renewing and applying for one. If you are in the process of renewing or applying for one, this means that you have submitted an application through the Environmental Farm Plan portal, not that you plan to apply in the future. A business plan that meets ministry requirements and was developed in the last 5 years will also be scored. So additional program scoring criteria for just Stream 3, fields being replanted and that have been cover cropped for the last 6 months prior to planting, a confirmed plant order for all the fields at the time of application. And for Stream 4, for the blueberry removal, fields that are being removed due to high levels of the blueberry virus. For the cranberry removal, removing old varieties, including Stevens, Berman, Pilgrim, Ben Lear, McFarlane, or Grigleski Hybrid 1. So in the last few slides here of the presentation, we'll briefly talk about the application review process and what you can expect if your project is also approved. So what does the project lifecycle look like for this program? Once you have completed your application, 10% of the eligible applications will be selected for further audit and review. This audit will involve a secondary review of applications for eligibility and validation of technical information by an accredited professional. Additional information may be requested from the applicant before it can be considered for funding. Field inspections will be conducted for a minimum of 25% of the completed projects by a qualified professional scheduling an on-site visit with the producer. You will be notified if your project is selected for this field inspection. You will also be notified if your application is selected for the 10% audit. And the final report will be due 2 weeks following the end of the project date. Project reports will also be completed in the IAF client portal. Again, if you have completed a project with us previously, it will be a near identical process. The contribution agreement and project changes. So upon approval, all applicants will be requested to sign a contribution agreement that outlines the funding amounts and funding conditions. Please read this document carefully, as it will tell you where you or when you need to have your report completed. It will also explain the funding terms. Project changes are only granted for this program in extenuating circumstances. These can include budget changes, so over or under spending, activity changes within the timeline of the project. Again, there is that still 24-month maximum for replanting, so stream 3, and 12 months for removal or renewal, stream 4. The project lead or designated officer change. If your primary contact with us is changing, please let us know as soon as you can. This can cause some significant communication issues if we can't get a hold of you. Also, the reporting deadline extensions. We are happy to work with you to make sure that you can access this funding, but we do need to have some level of communication where we can know where you are at in the program or in the project, and we can adjust as needed. So thank you, everyone. That wraps up the presentation portion of the webinar. We will move on to the Q&A section. But as a reminder, please use the Q&A function through Zoom to submit your questions. Please do not provide any identifiable information when you're submitting your questions. And so my teammates will be sending me the questions to read aloud and answer. If we are unable to answer or reach your question within the allotted time, we will follow up by email and we'll update the Q&A section on our website. If you do not provide an email for us, we cannot respond to you for your question. If you have a specific question and you would like to discuss with the IAF team, you can use the email here on the slide, erp@iafbc.ca, or you can find the link on the ERP funding stream web pages to book a consultation call once you have drafted an application. And we do have both those URLs here on the screen for you, but if you don't want to write down that very long URL, you can just go onto our web page. And so I'm just going to jump over here. And so first question, I am a raspberry producer and would like to replant blueberries. Am I eligible? So no, ERP doesn't fund raspberry producers who are going to be replanting blueberries in those same fields. If you're replacing blueberries with raspberries, however, that would be eligible as long as you're an existing raspberry producer. How do I know if my business plan meets the ministry requirements? A business plan that meets the ministry requirements and has to be developed in the last 5 years is used as a scoring criteria. There is no set template, but there is a checklist and guidelines on our website that you can use to draft your business plan. And this has been provided by the BC Agribusiness Program. So please look at those resources while completing it. Can I apply to stream 4 and then stream 3? So no, applicants can only apply to one of these two streams. You cannot apply to stream 4 and then to stream 3. So you can't apply from removal and then apply for replanting. Okay, I have another one here. I have a Perennial Crop Renewal Program project that is still ongoing. So if you have an active PCRP project or Perennial Crop Renewal Program, as mentioned in the webinar here, you are not eligible to apply for ERP until the PCRP project is completed. This does not matter if it's for a different commodity or variety. It's that if you have that PCRP project ongoing, you will be ineligible for ERP. But again, if it's closing soon, your project, you should be okay. Are you completely ineligible if you are not food safety certified? So this is an eligibility requirement. I believe there are 3 different options for food safety. There's the Canada Gap, which seems to be the most common. Can't remember the other 2 off the top of my head, but it is an eligibility criteria, yes. How do I demonstrate financial viability to complete and maintain a project? So this will be in the contribution margin template that's included in the application. So until you start your application, you won't have access to this document. It is just an Excel sheet, spreadsheet where you will be entering in your expected revenues based on potential incomes and sales from your fruit or crop. And then you will also enter in your expected expenses, and it will auto calculate based on your full production value, a end result. And so we're looking for a positive number that shows that you will be viable over the long term. Again, also with your business plan, it's likely that in there we will also be able to make a determination, but that contribution margin template is a required document. Okay, so it's a little bit longer one, but it says replant activities cannot start until after receiving funding approval. However, one part of the additional scoring is that the field will be left cover cropped for at least 6 months. If I am planning to plant in May, I would need to cover crop right now. Would this make me ineligible for the funding? Okay, so for stream 3, the replanting, which is where the cover cropping is used as scoring criteria, if only for stream 3, this does not apply to stream 4. If in stream 3, you have removed the plants already and are cover cropping, that is okay. But the planting cannot start until after approval. With stream 4, because the project will be that removal, the removing of your plants cannot start for stream 4 until after approval. If you don't cover crop for those 6 months, it does not make you ineligible. It's used as a scoring criteria. So applications that do have a cover crop field for those 6 months will have a slight boost on their application while we are scoring and prioritizing at the end. I hope that answers the question there. It's a little bit difficult to answer in words here, but you can reach out if it was a little bit unclear over email with that ERP, and I can get back to you. Can you provide clarity on the Agristability portion of the scoring criteria? Sure. I might actually see if Angela, if you want to talk about this one. I know the ministry has been working on production insurance and Agristability.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Of course. Can you provide some clarity on the Agristability portion of scoring criteria?
Yeah, so the scoring criteria, if I'm remembering correctly, is if you are currently a subscriber to one of the ministry's production insurance Agristability programs, then your application will get a higher score. It's not a requirement for eligibility, but it's to kind of boost the score of your application.
Great, yes. So I understand it that way as well. I know also, actually, it just popped in my head, if your application is selected for that 10% audit, we will be requiring, I believe for Agristability, it's a PIN, and then for production insurance, it's a ID. So those numbers will be requested from you. Thank you, Angela, I appreciate it. For stream 4, the blueberry plant removal, the cost covered is $2,500 per acre. Can this be applied to purchasing a piece of equipment? So this is in a roundabout way, I suppose, but not really, because we're giving you $2,500 per acre at a flat rate. So regardless of the costs that you incur for that removal, you're getting $2,500 if you remove that acre. If you remove, 10 acres, obviously you get the $25,000 over 10 acres. So technically, I suppose you could use that money for that, but we aren't refunding expenses. We're just giving a flat rate, if that makes sense for you. What is the total amount of funding that's available for berries? For stream 3, I might reach out to Angela. I don't know off the top of my head. I know I have it here somewhere. But if you happen to remember, sorry if I'm putting you under the bus right now.
No, that's fine. I don't have the number off the top of my head. Kate has helped me with the answer. However, 1 second. So I guess just to reiterate, it's a 5-year program. So it's the funding is allocated over the 5 years. And Berries has 20% of the sort of overall funding. So there will be funding available like next year and the year after. So it's not a one-time program.
Great. And maybe Christine, we can flag that one for a follow-up on our side if we're looking for more specifics on the dollars. And I can look into that for specifics. Yeah. Thank you again. Does having production insurance increase or decrease chances of application approval? So being enrolled in production insurance is a scoring criteria. So for streams 3 and 4, actually, your production insurance enrollment is used as a scoring criteria that if you are enrolled will boost your score. So it is beneficial to be enrolled in production insurance. The difference here now is that if you have a production insurance claim on the same fields or blocks being replanted, that is either pending or approved from January 2023 onwards, that will change your funding ratio in stream 3. It will go from 50% to 25%. And for the removal or renewal projects, you will then become ineligible. But just being enrolled is a good thing. So that will help your application. Okay. And does the 1 acre of removal need to be separate from other blueberries? What if the 1 acre is a chunk within the existing larger field? Okay, so if the 1 acre is a continuous acre or a section of a field, let's say 5 acres, but you're only replacing 1 acre, if it meets that minimum of 1 continuous acre, it will be eligible. Where it becomes ineligible is if, say, you're removing 4 sections scattered around of 0.25 acres that make that 1 acre. So it's okay as long as it's continuous, connected, minimum of 1 acre.
And maybe I can just, for further clarity, Derek, what's not eligible would be replacing like every 5th row, or just a few plants within a row that eventually adds up to 1 acre. That's what is not eligible.
Great, yeah, thank you. And so we've got a couple more questions that we'll still go through here. And just while the next one's popping into my field, I do suggest using these consult calls. They're a great help. It lets me put aside time and look into your specific application. And then we can chat for 15 minutes at a time that works best for you, rather than calling in and waiting to get a hold of me. So where is the link for the business plan criteria? So maybe we'll flag this one. If the email was provided, I can send the links in there, Christine. But also, if you go onto the main page of the Enhanced Replant Program and scroll all the way to the bottom, there will be a section that says resources. I believe it's right underneath FAQs. And in there will be 2 rectangles. One will be the checklist for the business plan, and another one will be a link to the sources and resources to help you construct a business plan. So it's on the main page. It might not be on each of the individual streams just because the business plan applies to all of them. Is Agristability the same as production insurance? So these are two separate categories and also two separate scoring criteria. The specific differences, I might also have to refer over to Angela, if you don't mind.
Sure, they're basically two different products, and I'm not a insurance expert, so I would refer you to our business risk management people. But essentially, we are treating them the same way in terms of the scoring criteria. So if you are covered under Agristability, then that's a score that would be the same as if you were covered if you had specific production insurance. Agristability just has different ways of paying out to farmers if you experience one of the perils listed in the policy. So they have different policies in terms of how you're reimbursed if something happens to your farm, and that would be to have a conversation with a business risk management expert, and they're available by phone. But in terms of this program, they're considered sort of equal weight.
Great, thank you. So we have a couple coming in from our room that joined us. Yes, let's take those. Coming from Carolyn, I believe. What varieties of blueberries are allowed? So we don't create a list necessarily of all of the eligible varieties. We do have those, I'm just going off the top of my head, I believe it was the Elliott is the one that is ineligible. And Duke is the one that it is eligible, but it's not recommended. So we will require from you justification for choosing the Duke. The remaining of, I mean, outrageous amounts of varieties of blueberries are still eligible. But again, we're looking at, in your application, are you supporting your choice? Do you put in the information that makes us believe that you're going to be successful? And I believe that, as blueberry producers, history in your field, working with professionals to help you out, you can select the varieties that work best for you. It's just those two options for the Elliott being ineligible and Duke being not recommended.
And those varieties were identified in an opportunity assessment that was done on the market opportunities for berries. If you're interested in knowing how that was determined, that was done in conjunction with the Blueberry Council.
Fantastic. We are wanting to cover crop, but it has been too rainy this fall. Can we put a cover crop in on January to February 2025 instead? So I'm trying to do the math here in my head. If you put the cover crop in January, February, you're looking at July, August for your 6 months. You do have 24 months for replanting. So that 6 months can be done within that 24-month period. You don't have to have started your cover cropping now. The 12-month restriction is just for the removal or renewal projects. So this gives you a little bit of extra leeway with your timeline and cover cropping. So in a roundabout way, yes, you can still cover crop in January to February. That 6 months is going to be dependent on when you choose to then do your replanting within the next 24 months. I removed and replanted blueberries in October 2024. Am I able to claim these plants? So because the replanting and removal activities have been completed before your application has been approved, this will not be eligible for funding in this situation. And I think that is going to be our last question here. Yes. If we have not gotten to your question, we will follow up by email if you provided it. I am working through some of the questions from our previous webinar that was on Tuesday, so I expect to be able to get through all of the questions from this one, ideally early next week. And again, if you have any other questions that you just didn't have time to put into the chat or in the QA box here, you can send those to erp@iafbc.ca, or you can book a consult call. Please have your application started by the time you book that consult call, because that will help myself out and help guide you through the process a little bit better. So thank you very much for everyone coming. And also thank you to Angela, Caitlin, Christine. It's very handy to have you here helping me out.